It's 11 a.m. on a Thursday morning in gorgeous Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Time once again for Southern Fried Sports on your home for University of Alabama Athletics. Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. The show, as always, brought to you by Peterbrook Chocolatier out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Still have that curbside service available to you, the takeout service as well at your very favorite chocolate tier on earth, really. And you got Easter coming up. So go ahead and make that call now at 205-752-0211. Get that special pre-order in for the Easter basket, the Easter holiday. Also, check out those outstanding chocolate-dipped apples. Got a little caramel to get you going on those. Then you got that chocolate. They can do them in white, dark, or milk chocolate. They can take care of you at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Joined, as always, on the program by Josh Smith, executive producer of SFS. And together we combine to form the 60-minute bit of sports talk radio. Josh, how you doing on this Thursday?
Hey, just keeping on enjoying the sunshine, and hopefully, it's going to be here to stay for a little bit, but the one thing that I feel like is just the worst about it is just a big tease. I mean, we had this curfew put on us yesterday, and now we get good weather, so it's one of those things where it's like, man, why does the sun have to come out now? But we're still enjoying it. Yeah,
it feels like Major League Baseball opening day outside, doesn't it? I mean, absolutely, and that's what today was supposed to be. Unfortunately, as we know, that's been pushed back to mid-May at the earliest. And we'll check in with Alabama beat alum Chandler Rome coming up at the bottom of the hour. Chandler's had a lot on his plate this offseason, man. Chandler covers the Houston Astros for the Houston Chronicle. You think Chandler's had a few things come his way?
Can only imagine the forums.
Scandal. Oh, my gosh, the cheating scandal with the Astros, and how that was really butchered by that franchise in the wake of the revelations that we came to know. And then you had this situation with the COVID-19 virus and the postponement of the 2019 season. We'll talk with Chandler about that and a whole lot more coming up at the bottom of the hour on what was supposed to be opening day 2020 for Major League Baseball. We'd love to hear from you as well. 205-342-9904. That is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line. Just check in with us and let us know how you're doing. What are you doing? How are you doing to get through this quarantine? Are you hashtag stay at home guy or gal? I think a lot of folks are. We've officially reached the point in the quarantine, by the way, where the youngest daughter is now giving me haircuts in the garage. That's where we're at. That tells you where we're at. Yeah. Got out in the garage yesterday. And the good thing about my hair is that it's pretty much all gone at this point. So there's no real major mistakes that can be done in giving me a haircut. You don't have to worry about that. It's kind of like one of those sketch it things where if you don't like it, you can just shake it up and start over. That's my hair at this point. That's my hairline. And so went out in the garage yesterday afternoon, and Tatum, the youngest, put the foreguard on those clippers, and off she went. Just had a good time with it. So that's where we're at around Casa de Reier. Not sure about the rest of you. We've got some other things we'll get to on the program today as well from a football perspective. We've gotten into some of the opposing running backs, some of the opposing quarterbacks, some of the opposing wide receivers on Alabama's 2020 football schedule. We're going to maintain that posture, man, of trying to look ahead to some semblance of a college football season this fall. And we'll continue to do that. We'll move over to the defensive side of the ball today, and it's a piece you can find right now at BamaOnline.com. We'll discuss it. Top 5 opposing inside linebackers on Alabama's 2020 schedule. So much happening around the world right now, though. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to sort of maintain some focus on the sports world. First of all, we don't have a lot of sports or really any sports happening We had the NFL transactions. We had the buzz around Tua Tagovailoa coming back from that hip injury. What that could mean for some draft boards around the National Football League. We talked yesterday about the impact that Tua's recovery, especially in a time when there's nothing else to talk about. We don't have anything else to talk about right now. And so any drip, any crumb, any morsel of sort of info that we can get, anything even closely resembling newsworthy, we're going to jump on at a level that we typically don't, even in the 24/7, 365 news cycle. So we've gotten into some of that, but man, just trying to access parts of the world right now, and how that impacts our mindsets and our outlooks on life in general. It's all really tied in, all really important. Our oldest daughter, Savannah, out there at the University of Hawaii, we sent her back to Honolulu a couple days ago, and I know people were like, God, man, you really going to send her back? Well, you know what? She was on like a 757 from Atlanta to Honolulu, and I promise you, if there were 300 seats on that plane, there were 10 of them that had people in them. So that's as close as she may ever get to flying private. But I think as much as anything, in all seriousness, with the way that her basketball season ended so abruptly, to have someone just come into a meeting on a Thursday and say, that's it, not just your basketball season, but your collegiate basketball career, in the case of these seniors and these student athletes we've talked about so much in their final years of eligibility where the winter sports are concerned. I think that combination of things and the suddenness of it, after about a week and a half of sort of recovering, you start craving that normalcy. We're all craving normalcy at this point. I think that's why we're kind of appreciative to the NFL to this point, that it has maintained its sort of schedule of business and how it goes about things. But I can tell you, Savannah, I think, was ready to just get back to some familiar scenery and sort of have an opportunity to maybe that way gain some sort of closure. It's tough. 205-342-9904. By the way, the Hawaii Tourism Authority, the day that Savannah flew back to Honolulu, they had 4,000 people total fly into Hawaii. That's including the Big Island, Oahu, the different places in the islands where you can fly into in the state of Hawaii. They comprise the state of Hawaii. 4,000, just a little more than 4,000 people flew into Hawaii on Tuesday. Most of those folks were, like Savannah, residents of the state of Hawaii. And on that same day a year ago, Tuesday, 34,000 people flew into Hawaii. So you're talking about a drop of 30,000 folks that flew into the state of Hawaii on Tuesday compared to a year ago. You talk about the economic impact. And look, I think in most instances, we're all trying to do what we need to do, trying to be safe, trying to take care of one another. I get all that, but man, the numbers, unfortunately, as we're seeing more and more in terms of this pandemic, in terms of people infected, in terms of deaths, it's continuing to rise. So if you're still on the fence about the serious nature of this thing, I think it's time to go ahead and get all the way on the other side. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls at 205-342-9904. We'll also get into these opposing inside linebackers on Alabama's schedule for the 2020 season. And then coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk about Chandler Rome. What's Chandler Rome doing today? Chandler Rome, as the beat reporter for the Houston Astros there with the Houston Chronicle, he is supposed to be preparing today for the Astros and the Angels. Mike Trout supposed to be in Houston today for opening day 2020. Not happening. How's Chandler navigating this whole situation? And of course, we're going to get his thoughts on the Astros and the scandal that franchise has found itself neck deep in here in recent months. Has this pandemic in a very tragic way, in a way that none of us would have preferred. Has it been beneficial to the Astros? No one's talking about the Astros. No one's really talking about sports much in general. Again, understanding that. And could this sort of soften the blow for the Astros once we get back to playing baseball and sports in general? We'll ask Chandler about that and a whole lot more at the bottom of the hour. First, though, a break and then some inside linebacker talk from an opposing perspective for the Alabama Crimson Tide in the 2020 season. Back with more of SFS presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this. Sports. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. Did you see this, Josh? Did you see where Drew Brees and his wife, Brittany, are committing $5 million to the state of Louisiana? What? Yes. Amazing. Not 500,000, not $1 million, not $2 million, $5 million to the state of Louisiana from Drew Brees
and his wife. I didn't mean to cut you off, but especially in a time when we saw just in the last week where they've experienced, 10 times the amount in their cases as far as with COVID, just exponentially growing over there. So definitely, we saw Roger Federer, I believe it was yesterday or 2 days ago, as you mentioned, donate 1 million francs over in Swiss, but $5 million just to the state of Louisiana.
Prepared to deliver over 10,000 meals per day throughout the state of Louisiana for as long as it takes to feed children. How about that? Families, seniors, just folks in need in general. Amazing work. And that's what you hope to see from really as much as anything, and we are seeing it from team owners in professional sports. But $5 million, that may be the highest. I'm pretty sure that's the highest I've seen yet. And I love this. I love the signal it sends out to others. Hey, look, this is not only something we should all be doing, but this is a very real situation. And you're right. Seeing the reports, hearing the reports out of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana here in the last day or so, man, it is bad down there right now. Specifically in New Orleans, where apparently one of the so-called hot spots is right there in a retirement living facility in New Orleans, where you've had double-digit deaths come out of that facility to this point. Rough times. Good on Drew Brees and his wife, Brittany. Delivering, wow, in a big way. Let's talk some inside linebackers for the 2020 schedule of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Top 5 opposing inside linebackers that Alabama will face during what we hope is the upcoming season. We'll start at number 5. And speaking of Louisiana, this might come as a surprise to some folks, this guy, because he's been pretty much an apprentice. He's been pretty much a backup, a special teams performer. Did make a few starts last year at one of the outside linebacker spots, which is why, even though he has yet to be a full-time starter for the LSU Tigers, I'm going to put Damone Clark, the junior linebacker from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at number 5 on this list. He appeared in all 15 games last year. He made those aforementioned starts at outside linebacker. He had 50 tackles on the season, so this is a guy who saw a good bit of action. 4 of those were tackles for loss. He did see time on defense against Alabama. He had a solo stop of Najee Harris in that game back in November here in Tuscaloosa. And you've got a total overhaul coming for the LSU Tigers at the linebacker level. And it starts at those inside spots with Jacob Phillips and Patrick Queen moving on to the National Football League. And I think Clark at 6'3" and 239 pounds and athletic, kind of reminiscent of another Baton Rouge native that way, and Christian Harris, currently of the Alabama defense. But Clark, with that size and that athleticism, I think he's going to be more than ready to step into that spot in the middle and play at an extremely high level for new defensive coordinator, Bo Pelini. Yeah, second stint, second time around for Bo there at LSU. Number 4 on this list, I've got Anthony Hines III of Texas A&M. You had an overhaul at the inside spots in College Station last year. Otero Alaka, your former weak side starter, moved on. Tyrell Dodson, the starter at middle linebacker, moved on to the National Football League. And so you had new guys there in the inside positions for the Aggies in 2019. Anthony Hines responded at weak side by posting 73 total tackles. 10.5 of those went for loss. Against Alabama in a 47-28 defeat last October, Hines got in on 6 stops, including 1 behind the line of scrimmage. I like Hines and Buddy Johnson as one of the top 2 combinations when you talk about Mike and weak side guys for the upcoming season. Buddy Johnson had 70-plus tackles last year. Hines had 73. And both those guys are going to be back as a duo in 2020. Number 3, I've got KJ Britt of the Auburn Tigers. Started every game at middle linebacker last year. Had 69 tackles. 10.5 of those went for loss. 2.5 sacks. Against Alabama in the Iron Bowl last November, Britt had 6 tackles, including a half stop for loss. That's going to be a nice group for the Auburn Tigers when you talk about Mike linebacker and weak side linebacker. Bigger concern, obviously, up front. And I think guys like Britt and Owen Papo and Zacoby McClain certainly benefited from having Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson and those guys working up front there. So more of the load is going to be on KJ Britt this year, going to be on Papo. Big things expected out of the former 5-star recruit who started every game as a true freshman last year at weak side linebacker. And you got McClain to go along with Papo. But it's going to be more on Britt and those backers to lift the overall level of play for that Auburn defense in 2020 than it was in 2019. They're going to have to be more of the show, and they're not going to be able to be as dependent upon a front like they had a year ago. I think Auburn will still be fine up front, but I mean, we're talking about Derek Brown, a top 10 pick for the upcoming 2020 NFL draft. Marlon Davidson, you're seeing a lot of second rounds for this upcoming draft. So you're talking about a couple of high round draft picks that the Auburn Tigers must replace. Number 2 on this list, I've got Monty Rice, the Huntsville native. Couple of North Alabamians that Alabama is going to face in the 2020 season. Monty Rice of Huntsville. And then you're also going to have Errol Thompson of Mississippi State. Florence stand up where Errol Thompson is concerned. Monty Rice was Georgia's team defensive MVP in 2019. He had 89 tackles, which was a team high. He started all 14 games at middle linebacker. He also had 14 quarterback pressures. He was a second-team All-SEC selection by the Associated Press. So we'll go with Monty Rice there. I think more so than some of the other guys on this list, Monty Rice is going to benefit from the return of some really talented guys. Georgia loses a few guys up front, but they've got guys that were beat up last year too that should be full strength this year, like Julian Rochester. And Kirby and that staff, as we know, they've recruited at an extremely high level with an emphasis on that front seven. I think Monty Rice, once again, he's going to be in that sort of 90 tackle range, if not higher. Monty Rice isn't as dynamic as, say, potentially a guy like Damone Clark of LSU. But you know what you're going to get game in and game out. Just very steady, very consistent in Monty Rice. Very smart guy there, too, at the middle linebacker position. And the number 1 opposing outside linebacker on Alabama's 2020 schedule. This one's going to hurt a little bit. Probably even more than Monty Rice that got out of the state and went to Georgia. Not sure Alabama really ever put the press on Monty Rice during his recruitment coming out of James Clemens High School. We do know, however, that Alabama put the full court press on Henry To'oTo'o from Concord, California. Remember that one a couple of years ago? You should be able to. It was the class of 2019. All signs for what seemed like the duration of that recruitment pointed towards To'oTo'o coming to Tuscaloosa and joining the Crimson Tide. It did not play out that way, as we know. And Tennessee, very much the beneficiary of that. Toa started every game for Tennessee last year at weak side linebacker, except for the game here in Tuscaloosa. He was suspended for the first half of that game, as you might recall, because he was flagged for targeting the week before against Mississippi State. So wasn't able to start here in Tuscaloosa. Only had one tackle in that game. Alabama's 35-13 win here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. But if you watch Toa for any considerable amount of time throughout the 2019 season, it became very clear that this guy lives up to the billing as a former 5-star recruit and finished the season with 72 total tackles. You got Daniel Batuli moving on from Tennessee, so the expectation is for Toa to be the every down guy. And with Jeremy Pruitt and the similarities between what Pruitt does defensively and certainly what Nick Saban in Alabama does defensively, that means you're going to see Toa in the base, in the nickel, and in the dime as sort of that MAC linebacker when the balls go with 6 defensive backs. Toa was a freshman All-America and SEC All-Freshman selection a year ago. Going to be a really good one. I like Toa as much because you can see the football IQ and the instincts in this guy. And he's physically gifted. This was a guy on the high school level. And again, going back to Tosh Lapoi's stint here, at Alabama, and the tie that Lapoi had to that area of Northern California, that De La Salle program that both Lapoi played in and Toa played in, it looked really good for a long time for Alabama. But a very smart player, a very physically gifted player, and a guy that Alabama is going to have to deal with for at least 2 more seasons in the Southeastern Conference. Going to step aside for a break. When we come back, we'll check in with an old pal. We haven't heard from Chandler Rome in a while. Remember we used to do Spanning the Bama Beat with Chan? We're going to catch up with Chandler Rome at the Houston Chronicle these days. Covers those Houston Astros. When Southern Fried Sports returns on Tide 100.9 FM right after this. Chandler, how you doing, my man?
I got all the time in the world, man. I'm doing well. I'm happy to be back on. Tide 102.9. I hope everyone in Tuscaloosa is doing well and holding down. I miss, covering pro baseball was a dream, but I'm not going to lie. I miss Tuscaloosa. I miss living there, and I miss being around. That beat.
That's a pretty cool beat, while you were here. And I can tell you this: a lot of us are still here, Chandler. If you ever want to come back. It hasn't changed a whole lot, but how are you holding up in all this? I mean, today is supposed to be opening day for Major League Baseball. You're supposed to be covering, I guess, the Angels and the Astros today. So how different of a feeling is all this, knowing what we're supposed to be doing today and what we're actually doing?
Yeah, so for me personally, I don't want this to sound like I'm diminishing what's going on in the world, but for me personally, this is the off season I never had because of what happened with the Astros this off season. It really seemed like from the day Game 7 of the World Series ended, there was no break. The sign stealing revelations came out about 2 weeks after the World Series ended, and then from then on, this was not a traditional off season by any stretch of the imagination. So in that vein, obviously, personally, it's been a little bit nice to have some time to unwind and kind of rest a little bit because I didn't get any of that in the off season after a really long season. But I'm itching for baseball to be back. I want something to do. It's a little difficult to find things to write about when there's nothing going on. And, even though the players are quarantined just like we are, a lot of them, they don't have the answers either. So you're talking to a lot of people and you're texting a lot of people that a lot of people just don't know what's going on. And I think that's the biggest thing that is gripping not only just baseball, but just the entire world right now is just the uncertainty of when this is going to end. Hopefully it does end soon. And if and when it does end, then how does this baseball season proceed?
And we heard from Commissioner Rob Manfred, I guess, last night with Scott Van Pelt on ESPN SportsCenter. And I guess that would sum up that interview best. You just don't know. And some of the scenarios being thrown out there, potential modifications, obviously, are going to be in the works for the regular season. Hopefully we have one of some semblance. And a scenario in which, you could have a postseason, a World Series extending into the winter months. What are you kind of hearing on that front, Chandler? Is it basically what we heard from Manfred last night?
Yeah, they want to play as many games as they can, but I think any thought of playing 162 games this year is fading very, very quickly. Rob Manfred all but ruled it out last night. The longer this goes on, the bigger of a stretch it becomes that there's going to be 162 games this season. You could see more doubleheaders. You could see less off days. You could see a curtailed all-star break to maybe make up for some and get some of those games in. As far as a number of regular season games, again, this is all going to depend on when public health officials and when everybody says that it's okay to start going outside and the gathering groups of more than 10 people. And baseball is not like many other sports where if you give them a week, they'll be ready. They're going to need a 2 or 3 week second sort of spring training. And the logistics of that are unknown right now. Does everybody go back to Florida in the Astros case, or do they go to Arizona to their respective spring training homes? Do they stay in their home cities and work out in their ballparks? And then you got to get to, the one thing that's been sticking in my head, the Astros go to Seattle 4 times a year. That's one of their division foes, and Seattle's obviously one of the places struggling the most with the coronavirus pandemic, and it's a hot spot. And I can't imagine that the Astros would go to Seattle right off the bat. So you've got to figure in there that there's some places that, quite frankly, are going to be ready to host large gatherings faster than others. And there's so many logistics to work out right now. And Rob Manfred intimated last night that we could see a different playoff format this year. That had been percolating before the pandemic even was a thought. There have been reports that they were thinking about expanding to 14 teams by 2022. Maybe we see that this year with a shortened season. It sounded like Rob Manfred wanted to provide maybe a more entertaining playoff format to kind of he kind of termed it as help to heal what's going on in the country right now. So a lot of stuff is up in the air. They have to be prepared for the worst case scenario, obviously, of maybe the season being canceled altogether. But I don't think that's something right now that a lot of people are thinking is going to happen. But then again, this thing changes hourly, so you never really know. But it won't be 162 games, but they hope to get as many as they can in.
It sounds awful, I know, to kind of put it into this kind of perspective with what we're dealing with globally in this pandemic. But in terms of what the Astros as a franchise and an organization were dealing with on the PR front, on the heels of the revelations with the cheating and all that. And again, totally respectful to our current situations. But has this do you think this helps the Astros from that perspective? I mean, we're not talking about the Astros and trash cans right now. We know that much, and we shouldn't be. But even when we do get back to playing, do you think this stretch could sort of soften what was likely to still be going on this opening day? We certainly expected that to be the case. And looking ahead to what it might be because of what we're enduring right now.
Yeah, look, I don't think this pandemic's going to all of a sudden scrub people's minds. People are going to still know that the Astros cheated when this pandemic subsides. And there are going to be some people that are still going to be as angry in July, hopefully when we're playing baseball again, as they are right now. I do think the pandemic probably offers a little bit of perspective. It puts a lot of things in perspective, especially that it doesn't seem that sign stealing or banging trash cans is as egregious now, just given the state of affairs in the country. But I think certainly it has to benefit them in some capacity, because you're looking at a possibility that they begin the season playing in front of no fans. And that was the biggest question coming into this whole season was, how were the Astros going to handle the psychological toll of the fallout of this scandal? And it was brutal in spring training. I mean, they were booed and jeered everywhere they went in spring. And those stadiums are smaller. They hold small crowds, so it's easier maybe to hear some of the specific stuff that's yelled, and some of the stuff that they were being told was pretty vicious. And you only expected it to get worse on the road. And in the regular season, they were beefing up their security detail because players were receiving death threats. They were prepared to endure a pretty miserable road schedule. That probably won't be as bad, just given what's going on. But again, they still cheated. They still did it, and people aren't going to forget that. I think first time that fans are let back into a stadium and the Astros come in as a visitor, they won't be treated well. And I think that'll continue if they make the playoffs. Obviously, no matter where they play, the Astros, aside from Minute Maid Park, no matter where they play, they're going to be the villains everywhere they go. And I think people will always remind them of what they did. But I do think this whole ordeal does put it all in perspective. And it'll help them a little bit, just given maybe some distance from all the vitriol. But, of course, it's not going to stop it, I don't think. I think they're still in for a pretty awful road experience.
Now, we had already seen some spring training baseball, and some games had been played. I know you covering the club on a daily basis. What was the response like just in the spring training games that we had that you witnessed? Was it about what you had expected? Was it a little more over the top? Was it not quite what you expected in terms of fan response?
It was probably about what I expected. Some places it was a little bit worse. When you think of spring training, I mean, the Astros are in Florida, they're in West Palm Beach, and I mean, the people that attend spring training games are not maybe your typical baseball fans. It's an older clientele. There are people there are families and fans that make spring training trips every year, but your everyday attendees at spring training games are probably kind of an older demographic, and it didn't matter at all. I mean, when the Astros went to Port St. Lucie to play the Mets, it was just awful. And the same way the Astros share a facility with the Washington Nationals, which created a really weird spring training opening game when it was a World Series rematch of the Astros and the Nationals. The Astros were technically the home team, so they honored their 2019 American League pennant. They brought the trophy out. They played highlight videos that got booed the entire time in a game that they were technically the home team. And it was just a really awkward time. And it was an awkward time really everywhere they went. It was about what I expected. The one thing I was interested to see is whether guys that were in the minor leagues or guys that weren't even on the team in 2017 were going to be treated poorly. And there were some places where they selectively booed. They booed Jose Altuve. They booed Carlos Correa. They booed Yuli Gurriel. They booed only the guys that were on that 17 team, and they spared maybe some minor leaguers or some other guys that were acquired afterward from vitriol. But there were a lot of times where the entire team was booed. That first day, that first game that they played in Grapefruit League play, no one in the starting lineup was on the 2017 roster. I mean, the entire starting lineup, I think, had a combined 30 Major League plate appearances, and they all just got completely trashed every time they went up to the plate. And they're booing a brand. Let's put it just plainly. They're booing a brand. They're booing laundry, and it's going to continue. And it's kind of unfortunate for some of those guys that were either in the lower minor leagues or on other teams in 2017. That's kind of how it's going to go all year. But I expected them to get booed, and I expected it to be pretty noticeable. But there were some places we went that it really, really maybe even exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, and you talk about players that essentially have very minimal appearances as Astros. They're bearing the brunt, aren't they, in large part because of how this was mishandled by the ownership and the front office of the Astros? I mean, I would say you should point at those folks as much as even the people that carried out the cheating in terms of what some of these sort of innocent bystanders are having to endure, or at least what they had to endure early on in spring. Chandler, would you agree with that?
Yeah, and privately those guys said, I know I went up to a few of those guys that are that are in that league that you talk about, guys that either weren't in Houston or were in the minor leagues, and they kind of say, you know what, that's just part of it. We expected it. And I think it's foolish to think that the Astros didn't expect this. I mean, they expected to get treated pretty poorly wherever they go, and they're going to need, mental toughness and mental fortitude to come through it. But, one thing I do think that's maybe been a little bit misconstrued, been, taken out of context a little bit, is there's a lot of people that assume the Astros didn't apologize for this. Their players did. If you watch what they said in the clubhouse on the day of that press conference with Jim Crane, when we went into the clubhouse, I thought every player in there that was on the 17 team, they all made themselves available, and they all were pretty culpable, pretty remorseful, and pretty apologetic. Now, whether you believe them and whether you believe what they said, that's in the eyes of the beholder. But, I think that they did a pretty adequate job of apologizing. It was just completely overshadowed by owner Jim Crane's just horrendous performance in the press conference beforehand. It seems like that's what everyone saw, and everyone sort of assumed that because Jim Crane didn't apologize and because Jim Crane was just, quite frankly, didn't handle himself very well, that extended to the whole team. I don't think that's true. I think the team has apologized, and they've done it over and over again. They've just got overshadowed by their owner not maybe doing the same thing, and that's something they're going to have to live with, and it's something that and it's well earned. I mean, this is earned. They earned this. I think Justin Verlander said it pretty perfectly at one point in the spring. He said, "We're in our grave. We dug our grave, and we're in it." And they know that they did this to themselves. That they opened themselves up to all of this, and they know that they're going to wear it, and they're going to know the brunt of it, and no one is going to feel sorry for them. But I think that there are some things maybe that if you look a little bit deeper that, yes, these guys have apologized, and whether you believe them is up to you, but these guys have apologized for this, and they've shown culpability and shown remorse. Granted, it was a little bit late, but they've done that, and it's just a matter of whether you believe them or not.
Doesn't believe them and who isn't over it? Our guy, Michael Casagrande, Big House of AL.com, member of that Alabama beat and noted Yankees fan. He's adding us right now in the show thread and begging for you to address the trash can situation. He's still salty, as you know. I mean, this is Casagrande's salty 24/7, regardless. But
shouldn't he be cooking his chili? Shouldn't he be cooking his canned chili or something?
His canned Skyline. Ooh, yeah. But in all seriousness, in your opinion, what should Rob Manfred have done? What could he have done? In terms of the World Series title and how that's been handled and how it's going to be acknowledged moving forward in the record books and the like.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing that would have satisfied, I think, anybody is to strip them of the World Series title. And it became clear, Rob Manfred has said that he wasn't going to do that. He said he considered it, but he said he wasn't going to do that. And, when I mentioned Jim Crane's pretty awful performance at the press conference, he was bad. I mean, that was not a good showing by him. But the more I got to thinking about it, the more I was like, well, you know what? The only thing that would have satisfied anyone is if Jim Crane would have walked out with the World Series trophy, put it on the table, and said, here, you can have it back. Anything else would have been deemed inadequate by a lot of people. And I really think that's the only thing that would have sufficed to maybe quiet this storm around the Astros. It would be to have stripped the title and stripped the World Series trophy. And that's not going to happen. The Astros are going to keep it. Rob Manfred said that the public can sort of judge for themselves now the validity of that title, and the public has done a pretty good job of making their thoughts known about the validity of the title. But I think that's really the only thing that would have quieted or that would have started to quiet any of this around the Astros would be to take the title away.
There you go, Chandler Rome. Well, Chandler, we miss you around here, and we hope you take care of yourself. Wash those hands. I'm sure you got some great takeout recommendations for the greater Houston area out of all this for us at some point. I'll have to hit you up on that. What's sort of the go-to takeout right now for Chandler Rome out there? You're in Houston, I'm guessing.
I am in Houston. So I live kind of not near Rice, but I live near a place called Rice Village, which has a lot of local little shops. There's a place called Local Foods that's really, really good. Sandwich stuff. Tacos are always a go-to. You can't walk 10 yards here without seeing good tacos or Tex-Mex. So I'm trying to support local. I live right next to a grocery store, so that helps. I went stocked up a little bit when I got back from spring. So I'm trying to balance cooking and ordering from takeout. But I tell you what, I don't know if they're a sponsor of yours or not, but I would kill to have an Avenue Pub takeout burger right now. That's probably the one thing I miss the most about Tuscaloosa is Avenue Pub, and getting that. That's the best burger I've ever had.
That's a great burger. There's no disputing that. That beef and bacon in there together, you know, how they make that work. We'll have to try to maybe work on that for you. But, hey, take care, Chandler. We appreciate the time and hope to catch up again soon, my man, when we have some baseball, hopefully, here in the near future.
All right, for sure. Thanks, Travis. Appreciate y'all.
There he goes. Chandler Rome, great friend of the program, covers the Houston Astros these days for the Houston Chronicle. Did a great job here on the Alabama beat during his time. Classed the place up a little bit, Chandler Rome did. He misses that burger from Avenue Pub. That does sound pretty good. We are blessed in this area during a takeout sort of era that we are in to have some great options to us in various parts of greater Tuscaloosa. I wonder if there's a trash can shortage in Houston, you know, with the Astros and the way they do their thing. We're going to head to a final break. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on Southern Fried Sports on a Thursday on Tide 100.9 FM right after this. Back with more of a Thursday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. Again, hope you're taking every precaution out there. Hope you're staying healthy as best you can. We do know that Mayor Walt Maddox, as we talked about earlier in the program, has implemented a curfew that will get underway here in the next day or so. It's going to be an overnight curfew. So Mayor Maddox doing everything he can. You talk about being a prominent and out front figure in all this. Kudos to Mayor Walt Maddox, man. Constantly, whether it's via social media, whether it's, you know, a variety of outlets that are available to him. You got Walt. Walt's ready. Walt's doing everything he can to take care of us here in the Tuscaloosa community. Also want to thank Chandler Rome joining us there in that previous segment. Great to catch up with Chandler, man. Been too long. Unfortunately, no baseball for us today. No Major League Baseball. So I don't know if I missed the actual baseball as much, by the way, as I missed the sort of nostalgia that comes with opening day. I mean, that's one of those childhood things that resonates with you. You know, back in my day, here comes your OK Boomer tweet. Back in my day, you know, you had opening day. I want to say it was always on a Monday, right around noontime on that Monday. And oh my God, I think we pushed it back to late March at this point? I want to say it was always kind of April back in the day. But you would have Cincinnati Reds baseball at Riverfront Stadium in the Natty is where you would open your Major League Baseball seasons. And it's not unprecedented. I mean, we've had years in which seasons have been postponed, but nothing involving something like this. It's always typically been business related with Major League Baseball. We wish Major League Baseball was being postponed today because of business. Stay healthy out there. The lunch whistle today, brought to you by Heat Pizza Bar, downtown Tuscaloosa, Government Plaza. Modified hours now, pretty much evening hours for you, takeout hours for you there in the evenings. Now, Friday, Saturday, I believe they expand those hours to involve lunch and dinner. But you can call them at 205-632-3282 and get that curbside delivery, get that takeout order in. I did it a couple of days ago. I ordered 3 pies. I did the barbecue chicken. I did the personal favorite, the Thai chicken pizza. And then I did just your basic, straight up, standard, traditional pie. They were all at Heat Pizza Bar, downtown Tuscaloosa at Government Plaza. Thanks to Chandler Rome. Thanks to Josh Smith for producing it. Thanks to you for listening. Until 11 a.m. on Friday. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.